Your high-mileage trade-in might be worth a lot less than you think, and the reason isn't rust or a fender ding. It's a handful of known mechanical and electrical failure points that dealerships have learned to price in before you even ask for a number. Today, we're breaking down 13 specific models with documented high-mileage problems, serious enough to tank a trade-in offer, and the engineering reasons behind every single one. Ask any used car appraiser what makes them wince when a customer pulls in, and a handful of model names come up again and again. Not because the cars are bad, but because specific transmissions, batteries, and electrical systems in these vehicles have well-documented failure patterns once the odometer crosses a certain point. We're going through the data, the repair costs, and exactly which 13 models to watch for. Think your reliable commuter is still worth a solid trade-in number? At certain mileage thresholds, a specific list of common vehicles run into repair costs that can equal or exceed what the car is even worth, and dealerships know it before you walk in. We're breaking down 13 models with documented high-mileage failure points, what they'll actually cost to fix, and what that means for your trade-in. Section 1. The economics of rejection. Let's start with how trade-in valuation actually works, because this is the part most owners never see. When you pull into a dealership for a trade-in appraisal, the number you get isn't really about your car's condition in isolation. It's about what the dealership thinks it'll cost them to get that car ready for resale, weighed against what they think they can sell it for. That's the entire game. Appraisers are doing quick mental math, estimated reconditioning cost, subtracted from expected resale price, equals what they're willing to offer you. Mileage is one of the biggest levers in that calculation. Industry guidance is consistent on this point. Higher mileage is treated as a direct proxy for more wear and more anticipated repairs, even when the car has been meticulously maintained. A vehicle with 150,000 miles is assumed to be closer to a major component failure than one with 50,000 miles. Regardless of how it was driven, though appraisers will sometimes adjust if they know the miles were highway miles versus stop-and-go city driving, since stop-and-go is harder on transmissions and brakes specifically. Here's the part that matters most for this list. Certain models carry mileage risk that goes well beyond normal wear. We're talking about a small number of specific transmissions, battery systems, and drivetrain components with well-documented, widely reported failure patterns, repair bills in the thousands of dollars that can show up earlier than owners expect. Sometimes well under 100,000 miles. When an appraiser sees one of these models pull onto the lot, they're not guessing. They've seen the pattern before, they know the repair cost, and they price the offer accordingly, sometimes low enough that owners feel like they're being lowballed without understanding why. That's the real story here. It's not a secret blacklist. It's accumulated real-world data on specific failure points, and today we're going through exactly what those are. Section 2. Powertrain time bombs. This is where the bulk of the risk actually lives in two transmission designs that became extremely common over the last 15 years, and that have very different reliability records depending on who built them. CVTs and why CVT problems really mean certain CVTs. A continuously variable transmission swaps traditional fixed gears for a pulley and belt system that adjusts seamlessly instead of shifting. The technology itself isn't the problem. The execution is, and one manufacturer's implementation is responsible for the majority of the horror stories you've probably heard. Nissan's Jatco built CVTs used across the Altima, Sentra, Rogue, Murano, and several other models roughly from 2007 through the late 2010s, developed a well-documented reputation for shuddering, overheating, and outright failure in many cases well before 100,000 miles. The 2013 through 2015 model years generated thousands of complaints to federal safety regulators, reporting power loss and shuddering severe enough that Nissan extended warranties and faced class action litigation over it. The root cause traces back to heat. Nissan initially told owners the CVT fluid never needed changing, which allowed degraded fluid to silently damage the hydraulic valve body that controls clamping pressure inside the transmission. Once that pressure goes, the belt slips and the transmission either shudders or fails outright. Compare that to Toyota and Honda, who took a much more conservative approach. Toyota's CVTs, especially in the Corolla and Prius, and Honda's belt-driven CVTs in the Civic and CR-V have built a track record of regularly reaching 200,000 miles or more, with nothing but routine fluid maintenance. Same basic transmission concept, completely different reliability outcome, because the engineering and materials behind it were different. The takeaway for trade-in purposes, a high-mileage Nissan from that CVT-affected window is going to get appraised very differently than an equivalent mileage Honda or Toyota, because the appraiser knows which one is more likely to need a multi-thousand-dollar transmission replacement in the near future. A full CVT replacement, when one is needed, commonly runs $4,000 to $8,000. These are sealed units that are rarely rebuilt. That number alone can wipe out most of a car's remaining trade-in value. Dual-clutch transmissions and the dry clutch problem, specifically dual-clutch transmissions, essentially operate as two manual gearboxes working in tandem, which in theory gives you the fuel economy of a manual with the convenience of an automatic. Volkswagen's wet clutch DSG, which bathes the clutch packs in cooling fluid, has built a genuinely strong reliability reputation over time. Ford took a different and costlier route. The PowerShift dual-clutch transmission, badged DPS6, used in the Ford Focus and Fiesta from roughly 2011 through 2018, went with dry clutches instead of wet ones to save weight and cost. Without fluid to manage heat, those clutch packs wear out faster than expected. The seals around the input shaft leak and contaminate the clutch surfaces, and the transmission control module itself has a documented failure pattern. The result is shuddering from a stop, delayed engagement, and in more severe cases, the car dropping into neutral or losing power outright. Owners have reported clutch pack failures recurring even after warranty repairs, sometimes under 50,000 miles per replacement. Ford extended warranties to 7 years/100,000 miles in response and faced its own wave of litigation. But mechanics in the field will tell you the underlying design issue was never fully resolved, even in later model years. For a trade-in, this is about as clear-cut as it gets. A high-mileage Focus or Fiesta from this era, with the automatic transmission, is one of the most heavily discounted used cars on the market, precisely because resale buyers and dealerships alike know what's likely waiting inside that transmission housing. Section 3. The high-voltage cost problem in aging hybrids. The third major mileage-related risk doesn't involve a transmission at all. It's the high-voltage battery pack in hybrid vehicles, and it follows a predictable timeline that owners often don't see coming until it's too late. Hybrid battery packs are generally engineered to last somewhere around 8 to 10 years or 100 to 150,000 miles. Once a pack starts to fail, symptoms include a dashboard warning light, sluggish acceleration, and a sudden drop in fuel economy as the gas engine compensates for a weaker electric assist. The replacement cost becomes a serious factor in what the car is even worth. Dealership quotes for a full hybrid traction battery replacement commonly run $5,000 to $9,000, with some models pushing past $15,000 at the dealer level. Independent specialists offering remanufactured packs can bring that down significantly, sometimes to $1,500 to $3,500 depending on the vehicle. But that's not the number most owners hear first. Here's why that matters for trade-in value specifically. By the time a hybrid is old enough to need its first battery, the car itself has typically depreciated to a fraction of its original price. When the replacement cost approaches or exceeds what the car is actually worth, dealerships have no financial incentive to take it on as a trade, and they'd be reconditioning a car for more than they could ever sell it for. Insurance companies apply the same math from a different angle. Many insurers will total a vehicle outright if the battery replacement plus any other repair costs exceeds 70 to 80% of the car's actual cash value. That threshold gets hit a lot faster on an aging hybrid than people expect, because the baseline value is already low. This risk profile applies most directly to older generation Prius models, early Honda Civic and Insight hybrids, and aging Ford Escape and Fusion hybrids, all popular, high-volume vehicles that are now well into the mileage window, where battery replacement becomes a live possibility rather than a hypothetical one. Section 4. 13 models with documented high mileage risk. To be clear up front, none of these are universally bad cars, and plenty of examples of every model on this list will rack up 200,000 trouble-free miles. What they have in common is a specific, well-documented failure point tied to certain model years that shows up disproportionately in repair data, complaint databases, and dealership appraisal practices. If you own one of these and it's been well maintained, that matters, but it's worth knowing what you're carrying. 1. Nissan Altima 2013 to 2018 CVT models. The highest volume of CVT-related complaints of any Nissan model. Shuddering and power loss frequently reported well before 100,000 miles on four-cylinder models specifically. 2. Nissan Sentra 2013 to 2017 CVT models. Same Jatco CVT lineage as the Altima, with the judder complaint pattern serious enough that Nissan extended the transmission warranty for affected owners. 3. Nissan Rogue 2012 to 2018 CVT models. Uses the same problematic CVT family as the Altima and Sentra, but mechanics report an even higher rate of issues, likely because the Rogue's extra weight puts additional stress on the same transmission components. 4. Nissan Murano 2009 to 2017 CVT models. Owners commonly report full transmission failure in the $4,000 plus range, around the 90 to 100,000 mile mark, often just outside the standard powertrain warranty window. 5. Nissan Pathfinder 2013 model year specifically. A distinct issue from the broader CVT pattern, a poorly clamped transmission oil cooler hose that can detach and cause sudden transmission failure, addressed via recall, but still a known weak point on unrepaired examples. 6. Ford Focus 2011 to 2016 PowerShift DPS6 automatic models. The dry dual-clutch automatic is one of the most heavily litigated transmission designs of the past 15 years, with clutch pack and TCM failures reported as early as 40 to 50,000 miles. 7. Ford Fiesta 2011 to 2019 PowerShift/DPS6 automatic models. Shares the same dry-clutch DPS6 transmission as the Focus, with symptoms appearing even earlier in some reported cases. Some owners noted issues by 50,000 miles. 8. Ford Mustang 2011 to 2020 V8 models with the MT82 manual. A different failure mode to not the dual-clutch issue, but a manual transmission whose internal components weren't built to handle the torque of higher output V8 variants, leading to broken synchronizers and hydraulic failures in higher mileage examples. 9. Toyota Prius, Gen 2, and Generation 3. Not a transmission issue at all, these are now reaching the age window where the original hybrid battery pack is a near certainty rather than a possibility, with dealership replacement quotes commonly in the $6,000 to $9,000 range. 10. Honda Civic Hybrid, 2003 to 2015, older battery packs. Similar story to the Prius, these are well past the typical 8 to 10-year hybrid battery lifespan, and replacement costs relative to the car's overall value can make repair a tough financial call. 11. Ford Escape Hybrid, 2005 to 2012. An aging hybrid SUV with the same high-voltage battery replacement math working against it at high mileage. The car's depreciated value often sits close to or below what a full battery replacement actually costs. 12. Chevrolet Malibu 2013 to 2019 CVT-equipped trims. A less discussed CVT problem, but real-world owner reports describe repeat transmission failures and warranty replacements occurring multiple times across a single ownership period, despite generally strong reliability ratings for the model overall. 13. Volkswagen Tiguan/Jetta, early dry dual-clutch DSG models, pre-2015. Volkswagen's wet-clutch DSG units are generally well regarded, but the brand's earlier dry-clutch dual-clutch applications carry a documented pattern of clutch wear and mechatronic unit failures that show up disproportionately once mileage climbs. Section 5. What this means for you as a high mileage owner. If you own one of these models or any high mileage vehicle, here's the practical playbook. Get ahead of the diagnosis, not behind it. If your car has a CVT or dual clutch automatic and you're noticing shuddering, hesitation, or unusual noise during low-speed acceleration, get a transmission-specific diagnostic before you bring it in for a trade-in appraisal. Knowing the actual condition gives you negotiating leverage and lets you decide whether a repair before selling actually pays for itself, which it often doesn't on these specific transmissions given how expensive full replacements run. Shop the trade-in versus a private sale or instant offer service. Dealerships price in worst-case repair scenarios when appraising a model with a known failure pattern, even if your specific car is fine. Getting multiple trade-in quotes plus a quote from an instant offer platform gives you a real comparison instead of accepting the first number you're given. For hybrids approaching the battery replacement window, do the math before you decide anything. Compare your car's current as is value to its value with a working battery, and weigh that gap against the actual replacement quote, ideally from an independent specialist, not just the dealer. In some cases, replacement clearly pays for itself. In others, selling as is the better financial move. There's a real calculable answer here, it's just rarely the same answer twice. If you're shopping for a used car, flip this whole list into a buyer's checklist. Before buying any of these 13 models in the affected years, ask for the maintenance history specifically around the transmission or battery, do a cold start test for delayed engagement, and check for open recalls. A car with documented maintenance and a clean transmission history can still be a smart buy even with one of these failure-prone components you're just buying with full information instead of finding out the hard way. The pattern across all 13 of these is the same. A specific, identifiable engineering decision, a dry clutch instead of a wet one, an aging battery chemistry, an underbuilt synchronizer that shows up reliably enough in the data that dealerships and mechanics see it coming. Knowing which models carry that risk, and why, is the difference between being surprised by a trade-in number and walking in already understanding exactly what it reflects.